EFC 99 will feature a title fight which echoes a story that has been told throughout time. A dominant champion whose legacy has already been written in the history books. A fighter who continues to amaze and enthrall with his ability, athleticism and lengthy reign. But once in a while, a young, hungry challenger will rise to topple the king. A fighter with nothing to lose who has earned his shot at the throne by pure grit and determination. One who will not be so easily dismissed by the doubters when the cage door slams shut. Igeu Cabeza will always be remembered as one of the greatest mixed martial artists to have ruled his home continent of Africa with an iron fist, whose every successful title defense just grows the target on his back bigger and bigger, day by day, until the 3rd of November, when a young sniper will face him in the hexagon and ask that fateful question: is today the day the king will finally fall? That is the question Bradley Swanepoel will be asking, and this is the countdown to EFC 99. Proudly brought to you by World Sports Betting.
The natural progression in any organization is to get the youngest undefeated up-and-comer to face off against the champion. And that's exactly what we did. And there were a couple of names there, but the one that stood out was Bradley Swanepoel. I'd asked him a couple of times in press conferences, does he really want this? Is this something he wants to fight for the title? And I'd left it in their court as if you want this and you really want to step up to Igeu, you need to chase it. And they did. And his father phoned me and really pushed the narrative that this is the next featherweight champion. Regardless of how people call things an underdog, you need to believe in one thing, that family, and especially his father, has sat down and worked out how to beat Igeu Cabeza. I mean, there's so much tape on Igeu, there's so much to work on. That's exactly what Mornay has been doing. So that's what makes this fight so exciting. What is Bradley going to come out with? We know that he has got incredible jiu-jitsu and freakishly long reach, freakishly long limbs. Look, it's no secret that where Bradley Swanepoel is going to be strongest is on the mat, on the ground. And that's scary for someone like Igeu, who we know has one kink in the armor, and that is his submission defense. He has succumbed to submissions in the past, and that's where Bradley's going to keep attacking, in my opinion. But I don't know, after all the work his father's been doing behind the scenes trying to work out how to beat and create the blueprint for Igeu Cabeza, maybe we see something completely unique. Igeu Cabeza has had 16 fights with the organization, and his only 2 losses have come by submission. If you were Bradley Swanepoel, you were Mornay Swanepoel, what would you be doing? What would you be looking at to exploit that? Igeu Cabeza is incredibly scary because everybody knows him as the wrestler. His catch wrestling is on point. He knows how to put you in a very compromising situation very quickly. There's a lot of trepidation as to whether they want to hang in that space with him, and that's scary, is when you're going up against a great wrestler, you need to understand the dynamics of where you are in the hexagon. You need to understand that this guy can put you on your back like that within a split second. So what do you do in those circumstances? You know, you're going to try and keep your opponent away, try and work the stand-up. But then hang on a second, this guy's got knockout power as well. I think he's had over 6 knockouts in his career. And that speaks volumes to how diverse and how dynamic Igeu Cabeza is. He's the guy who's not going to rely on his wrestling, even though he's sitting at the wrestling club every single day, competing in wrestling competitions and honing that skill, keeping that craft so sharp. He then has added that skill set of being able to launch off a power punch, launch off a kick, launch off something that's going to almost decimate his opponents. And that's what he's done with Carlos Caput. He's done that with Bananadas. I mean, Bananadas was a spinning back fist that he knocked his opponents out with. He is so dynamic. The first time we ever saw Igeu Cabeza in a position where he was using his hands, and I think the entire EFC fan base took notice, was him knocking out Saxon Delafield. And I mean, when he stood toe to toe and threw a combination and Saxon went down, I think we all just held our breath and realized we actually have an incredibly gifted wrestler that can actually hit like a truck. When he lays hands on you and he connects, it's lights out. There's been a big shift in terms of Igeu Cabeza's training camps throughout the years. You know, he's had a staple of being with Walter Wendt for a very long time and then moved around. And for the first time in possibly 5 or 6 years, he's back to what he loves doing, which is he's at a wrestling gym. He's up in Polokwane with Jan Roots and Rudy Roots, who's training him. And how good is his wrestling going to be? What is Bradley going to bring to the party that's going to be able to negate that style of wrestling? That's going to be the question on the night. To further add to his abilities, you've got someone that has submission skill. I mean, the Botha brothers, he knocked the one out and he submitted the other. That just speaks volumes to how dynamic Igeu Cabeza is. What I think is interesting when you look at Igeu's comeback after COVID is that he came back and we gave him a huge fight coming out of COVID against Ronaldo Exon. A fight that I think changed the landscape as far as the featherweight division was concerned, because Igeu had held on to that belt for so long, but it also created an entirely new style of fighter in terms of Igeu Cabeza. And that's where he went into the Ashley Calvert fight with this need to show that he can finish fights, and he was back. It was such an important win for him, beating and submitting Ashley Calvert in the first. And then to go on and take on this huge name out of CIT, Nerek Simos, who's probably one of the most dangerous guys in that gym. For Igeu Cabeza to beat Nerek Simos in the fashion that he did, you know, that just shows that he is back in full force. And that's why this is going to be such a huge fight for him, really cementing where he is in EFC. So with every great fighter, there's always that question, who is going to dethrone me? I mean, Igeu has had a long line of athletes that we've looked at and said, this is going to be the one, this is going to be the one. And time after time, he's just blown through them. And he hasn't fought somebody like Bradley Swanepoel in a long time. Someone that is incredibly hungry, somebody that's running an undefeated streak, doesn't know defeat in his entire career. This kid's never lost even in amateurs, and over 30 amateur fights. And Bradley's entire game plan is to be very cloak and dagger, to not give too much information as to what he can possibly present on the night. And that's what's going to make this entire fight come together, is we have got a decade's worth of footage from Igeu Cabeza, this legend in the making. And we've got this unknown quantity in terms of Bradley Swanepoel coming out of a prolific camp where they are researching how to defeat Igeu Cabeza. Could this be Igeu Cabeza's undoing? Someone like Bradley Swanepoel that's hungry. So Bradley debuted against Yebo Ntambwe, which wasn't the biggest fight for somebody like Bradley coming into the organization. But what it did was it showcased that this was somebody we could start looking at as a massive prospect. And fight after fight, he's only just built up that momentum, where after every win, we would sit back and go, this kid is the one to watch out for. He's on our top prospects list. And it was very much the same with Cameron Simon, who we obviously know now is in the UFC. And you can draw a line in the sand to the two and go, there's definitely an opportunity. If Bradley Swanepoel beats Igeu Cabeza, and mark my words, he will have made MMA history. He will be on the map. That is huge. To come from a world where at 2 years old, he was on the mats of an MMA gym in his father's gym. All the way through, I've been watching this kid come with his dad to the shows while his dad was cornering for some of our top athletes from Durban, and his dad saying, you think this guy's great? Wait till Bradley and Dylan start going. Wait till Bradley starts shining. And that's exactly where we are. And it's almost like he's spoken that into existence, is his kids now fighting for a featherweight title against one of the best champions we've ever had. And they are supremely confident that he's going to win. This could be an incredible moment in EFC history. Bradley Swanepoel is living in a world that is completely encapsulated by MMA. From the time he wakes up to the time he goes to sleep. He wakes up, he goes into a gym. His brother is his sparring partner. His father is his coach. You know, I think that is a very unique setup, something that we have rarely seen, when a family is geared up for this exact moment. This is what they've been working for their entire lives. A standout fight for me has got to be Bradley Swanepoel beating Vince Bembe. Vince, we know right now, is at the top of the featherweight chain. He is an absolute gamer. He just defeated Ashley Calvert. And prior to that, we put him up against Bradley Swanepoel, where Bradley, took his back for a full round. Because of Bradley's ability to almost envelop his opponents from his freakishly long arms and height. He towers over any other featherweight. So if you're looking to wrestle with him, you need to understand that once he gets hold of you, he is so hard to shake. And that's where the submissions come. All he needs to do when you are that big and you have that ability is wait for your opponent to make the mistake. And then you capitalize, which is exactly what Bradley is good at. Igeu's going to be doing his own homework. And one of the fights that he's going to look at is Bradley's fight against Tumisang Madiba. And in that fight, Bradley literally took apart a prolific athlete, somebody that's been in the organization for a very long time, that's fought the best of the best. And Bradley was able to use his own skill set to his advantage and make it his fight. And that's no small order. That is a huge, huge thing. He went into that fight totally confident that him and the team had done enough homework to beat someone like Tumisang Madiba, and especially so early in Bradley's career. So 2 undefeated athletes, someone's O had to go, and Bradley came out and said to the EFC world and its fan base, hello, I'm here to stay, I'm here to fight for the title. You think you can put somebody undefeated in front of me? I don't care, I'm taking him out. He managed to submit him in the first. It was his 3rd first round finish in the EFC. I mean, that just tells you what type of athlete we've got here. He just goes for the finish. It's going to be true to his moniker that he is the nightmare, and that's a massive problem for Igeu. Is he's very confident, he knows he's been in this position a million times, but not against someone like Bradley the Nightmare Swanepoel. It truly is going to be a nightmare for Igeu Cabeza. Igeu Cabeza will need to draw on a decade's worth of experience to beat a new age fighter like Bradley Swanepoel. That is it. He's going to have to dig deep into that arsenal that he has developed over the last 10 years to find what he needs to beat someone like Bradley Swanepoel, a new generation of fighter. Bradley Swanepoel does not need much in order to face Igeu Cabeza and win, except mental fortitude. He's got the ability, he's got the backing, he's got the coaching. All he needs to do is get in there and face Igeu. That's going to be it. He, the nightmare, has to face his biggest fear, which is a legend like Igeu Cabeza. On the 3rd of November, EFC 99, it will be old school versus new school. You're going to have Bradley Swanepoel, this young, new generation fighter, doing exactly what he has been built over the last 10 years to do. And you're going to have Igeu Cabeza, who is going to dig into his decades-long trove of educated violence in order to beat Bradley Swanepoel and remain the EFC Featherweight champion.
A similar story will be told at the co-main event, where the stakes are just as high. After a meteoric rise to fame because of his willingness to accept any fight, any time, Hwende secured bantamweight gold in the most spectacular fashion at EFC 96 by taking a chance and putting it all on the line to grab the gold. But now he faces another multiple title winning legend, a reinvented kickboxer with deadly submissions and one of the most fearsome reputations in the sport's history. Nkazimulo Zulu will look to add a 3rd title to his already heaving trophy cabinet by doing what no one else has been able to achieve and finish the Zimbabwean hero to finally cement his legacy as the greatest of all time. On the 3rd of November, history will favour the victor and fight fans around the world will witness a battle unlike anything they have ever seen.
Hwende has been a constant in terms of the underdog taking on the Goliaths in the room. And that's exactly what he did when it came to Taka Mahandu. Taka was a huge favourite. I think that every single person that had been introduced to Taka thought there's nobody that's going to derail this hype train. And that's exactly what Nick did. A 2nd round submission got him the victory, and it also earned him the most respect I've ever seen someone come into the organisation and receive, only with 2 fights. I think we were all just blown away that a guy that only had 1 fight in his resume was willing to take on this international star in terms of Taka and then really cement where he stands in the bantamweight division, almost catapulting him up into the guy to watch with that single victory. That is what we're dealing with Nick Hwende. Look, it's no shock that any fighter that goes through a transition of camp is going to come out the other side really having to dig deep because they don't have the foundation that they had previously. That's what happened when Nick went into the Barros fight. Is he transitioned out of camps, he was out of sorts, he took the fight anyway. He needed that win. Even though he took Barros 3 rounds, we could see that there was these little nuances and these specific moments where he completely outclassed Eduardo. And it was those little moments that made us see that this guy can withstand any type of pressure and any type of heat. Because to war your way through 3 rounds against a guy like Barros, it takes true grit. He got offered a late notice replacement fight, and that fight turned into a title fight, which he won and became a bantamweight champion. So, I mean, it just goes to show you this guy is living an absolute dream. He couldn't, if he had started the year out thinking that he would have been the bantamweight champion of EFC, I mean, it's just phenomenal what this guy's done, and actually testament to how damn good he is as a fighter. You know, it's one thing taking these fights, it's another just completely dismantling these incredible opponents. That is a whole nother discussion. That is a whole nother reason to keep your eyes on this kid. If fight fans want to go back and have a look and see what type of champion EFC has crowned here, it's the type of guy that breaks his hand in the first 2 minutes of the first round, and in a fight that he took short notice against an absolute Brazilian thriller. And this guy took the fight, broke his hand, and then still beat him in a TKO standoff. That's the type of intensity that Nick Hwende brings. Every time I see him, I never know what to expect. He just seems so free. He seems free in his spirit, free in the hexagon. He seems like this is where he belongs. And that's why he's going to be so hard to derail. That trajectory is just shooting into the stratosphere at the moment. And for anybody, you've got to come with some serious smoke. You've got to come with some seriousness to beat a guy like Nick Hwende in this momentum that he's got. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. He's only ever fought one other South African. And now he's facing the most prolific bantamweight champion we've ever had. That is huge. That just speaks volumes to the type of athlete that we're dealing with here in Nick Hwende. And the only man right now, as we sit here, is Nkazimulo Zulu. He's the only man that could possibly derail Nick Hwende. Zulu Boy for me has been, it kind of sounds cliched, but he's been an absolute pleasure to deal with. You know, he's been the type of athlete that always takes fights. He embodies so many great times, so many crazy fights, so many missed opportunities for those fights to happen. And I know that every time I'd put him on a fight card, I was guaranteed just a huge performance. Even when he went up against Jake Hadley and he wrestled him for 5 rounds, even then, he surprised me. He came with just the most incredible intensity and the want to put on a show for fans. You know, there's something that embodies everything I'm saying here, and it's his fight with Jean Sosa. When all the chips were down, when I genuinely thought he wasn't coming out of that round, and he burst out there and just completely dominated from there on, as if to say, okay, hang on, I've woken up now, I now need to perform. I need to beat this guy. I've been having fun, now it's time to win. And he's been with us since 2013, since EFC 19. I mean, he is a part of this organization like no other. We have literally built this guy up, helped him in his career from day dot, from his first professional fights, all the way through growing this career, even into the UFC and back out of the UFC, regaining titles, fighting some of the best guys the organization has had to throw at him. And it's just been this long-standing career of him really enjoying fighting. That is like, if I can give a summary to Zulu Boy, this guy loves to fight. He loves to fight. Being in there is what he lives for. And he's had almost 10 years with us doing exactly that. Living his dream, loving every moment of it. Another added caveat here is that you don't know, but Zulu Boy has joined Morne Fissa and CIT for this camp. And that means that in the build up to this, Zulu Boy is going to come with an entirely new game plan. What's incredible about Hwende is that he is a carbon copy almost of Igeu Kabesa's career. You know, Igeu Cabeza went along this path of fighting these huge names, these international stars, and we brought them out and he just dismantled them. And that's exactly what Hwende has done. I mean, if you consider the fact that this guy's only been fighting for less than 13 months, he's already the bantamweight champion. Consider going and possibly facing your biggest nemesis in the hexagon in front of millions of people on live TV, and then being in the gym the very next day, grinding away, doing what you love best at your trade, knowing that you are honing your skills in order to fight that guy. That's the type of athlete that Hwende is. He's the type of guy that he's completely unfazed by the media, by the roles. He gets through it, he gets it done. But his home is when he's training with guys like Sylvester Chipfumbu in the EFC PI. That's when he's at home. It's when he is honing that craft and making sure that he's going to come into the next title fight, his first defense, in the most incredible shape and ready to take on the charge of maintaining the title. You are witnessing one of the greatest bantamweight champions that EFC is ever going to see. And I know I'm almost predicting it as if it's happened, but I feel that this kid is on such fire and he's got such intention when he takes fights. And also, he doesn't back down. And every single time he comes out with a whole new, almost arsenal of moves and a different style, and something that you sit back and you go, oh my God, this guy can operate. He's an incredible athlete. So keep your eyes on this fight. Keep your eyes on this kid. This is the fight people are going to want to watch on this fight card. In Hwende, to become a legend, you have to and you must beat a legend. And that's what he's going to try and achieve at EFC 99. If you look at Zulu Boy's career, it is really got so many points of ups and downs. He has come out of COVID and then submitted Fafa Dwama, someone we know is this kind of like dogged lay and pray, you know, very, very difficult to finish and submit opponent. And this guy comes out and does something we didn't think he could do, which is submit Fafa Dwama. Then he goes on and he goes to defeat Lutando Biko via submission, something that I didn't even think was possible. You know, Biko has zero up until that point submission losses on his record, and he's known as this prolific judoka practitioner, so it was almost doing the impossible. And then goes on to get knocked out by Lutando Biko, which, I mean, this is not a positive, but the reality is no one had ever up until that point touched Zulu in the stand-up, and here this crazy wrestler judoka is knocking him out. So the point is, Zulu's entire career has been exactly that. Huge highs, huge lows, inconsistencies, wrestling when you should be a kickboxer, you know, beating the guys you shouldn't beat, submitting the guys you shouldn't be submitting. And that's why stepping in there at EFC 99, I guarantee you everybody sitting watching will not know what to expect. And because he's training with a new camp that is CRT, this prolific group of guys that have produced all these UFC fighters, we don't even know what Zulu's going to be able to achieve or deliver to us after that. I mean, this is the beauty of Zulu Boy, is he's going to come with an entirely new bag of tricks to fight Hwende. For me, where Zulu Boy is at the moment can be hyper-focused in his last fight. Look at the Jean Sosa fight. The first round, he was completely chopped down. Zulu Boy should not have come out, in my opinion, in the second round, and he did. It's almost like he just switched on and said, okay, you want to fight? Let's have a fight. And he turned it on and managed to pull out a draw, something he's never done before, going up against Jean Sosa, which is huge. It was a massive fight. I mean, like, it just made me realize that we haven't lost Zulu Boy to years of combat. He's almost reinstated himself as a new Zulu Boy, a new fighter. And now we're going to see Zulu Boy in full steam, at his prime, with an incredible coach and an incredible team backing him. And that is what is going to make this fight the one to watch on the EFC 99 fight card. Nicholas Hwende has faced the toughest opponents that EFC has managed to get. And in doing so, he has shown the fight IQ and fight prowess that has blown us all away as an organization. And it's only right that to officially crown him after having defended his title against someone like Zulu, we'll be able to say this is the best bantamweight on the continent. What EFC has managed to produce in the last couple of years is what Nicholas Hwende is. He's a byproduct of the new age of mixed martial artists. And Nkazimulo Zulu stands in front of him as the guy that really wants to set the tone for how his legacy is going to play out. It's not going to be supercharged in terms of two athletes saying things to each other in those face-offs. This fight is going to take place in the hexagon. That's what it's all going to be about.
2 titles are on the line at EFC 99. Igeu Cabeza clashes with undefeated Bradley Swanepoel, and Nicholas Hwende takes on Nkazimulo Zulu. Live from Johannesburg on Thursday, 3 November. Broadcast and ticket details at EFCworldwide.com.